for Rivals.com. This is National Recruiting Analyst John Garcia Jr. We've made it to the month of October. All levels of football are in full swing. We got spooky season ahead, of course, the holidays as well. So we're talking storylines in the Southeast. And look, we could easily pivot to the top recruit in the South, Jeremiah Smith, continuing to take visits despite that Ohio State commitment, or another receiver making headlines, Carr, decommitted from Georgia in September, taking heavy visits come October. Auburn's already hosted him. Miami gets him on campus next. Or how about LJ McCray, a defensive lineman from Daytona Beach, Maryland? He's going to make his verbal commitment in October, turns 18 on October 18th to be exact. Where will he go? Can the Gators keep him in state? What about Georgia? Some of the other schools on his list. All of those thick storylines to follow in the month of October. But the number one storyline we're following is about number one, or should we say previous number one. The Georgia Bulldogs are no longer atop the class of 2024 recruiting rankings on Rivals.com. We mentioned Carr decommitting, the wide receiver from Colquitt County, pushed Georgia down to number 2 in favor of Ohio State. Now, on one hand, you could say, look, Georgia hasn't won a recruiting title on Rivals since 2020, and it's worked out pretty well on the field. On the other hand, you could say it's been so great on the field that a number one class would sort of be a feather in the cap for Kirby Smart. Of course, Georgia right there at number 2, and plenty lie ahead for the Bulldogs going forward. Let's go back to Carr. They're still in it for the dynamic wide receiver who is pushing for 5-star status. Another 5-star type wide receiver, Ryan Wingo, has Georgia high on his list. How about Aiden Breland, a defensive lineman from California? He's committing on October 14th, and you guessed it, Georgia, one of his final 3 schools. We mentioned LJ McCray from Florida. Georgia's a top 5 finalist for him, with some buzz for the Bulldogs going into the fall, sitting there as well. When he comes off the board, that could be another path towards Georgia moving back to number 1. Oh, and by the way, in-state, many recruits still heavy on the Bulldogs, including the number 1 safety in the country, KJ Bolden, despite that commitment to Florida State. So a lot to follow in October, led by Georgia. Who else? And we'll track it all for you, of course, right here at Rivals.com.